BJ Penn.com Radio.
Well, I can tell you something, baby. Right now, we've got about 5 minutes left before we leave from point A to point B. We got about 5 minutes left before we roll in that hole, baby. You better get right because you got all night to get it done. You got about 5 minutes. All right, baby. Time to roll. Time to roll to the hole. We rolling! Yeah! This is what we do and why we do it. And nobody does it any better than we do. It's your night, your fight, so get it right, baby.
What's up, BJPenn.com Radio? This is Leonard Garcia here. I'm with George Matthews. George, are you there?
It's awesome to have you on, Leonard. What's been going on, bro?
Not much. I did a show a couple nights ago with Late Night Cage Side, and things went well, and everybody, they didn't believe it was me. I don't understand why, but I think the interview went pretty good.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't hear the first part of it. I mean, you were texting me. I was trying to get you back on the phone, and I got to apologize for my unprofessional other radio hosts. I couldn't believe they wouldn't get you back on the phone.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, but whatever. It's all good, man. I'm here on BJPenn.com Radio.
Live from Jamaica?
Yeah. That was funny, man. That was a funny prank we pulled on our Monday night radio show.
Yep.
So let's give the listeners a background real quick with what happened there. Leonard Garcia was scheduled as their first guest. He didn't show up, and so I called in as Leonard Garcia with that little voice that doesn't sound anything like Leonard, and I kind of pulled a prank on him. It was pretty funny. If you missed it, check it out. We got a lot of good reviews on it. I got a lot of texts saying how hilarious it was. It's on the BJPenn.com website, BJPenn.com/radio, and you'll find the archive from last Monday on Late Night Cage Side. So it was a pretty good exchange.
Yeah, it was pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, man. In 7 minutes, we're expecting a Black Zillion, Abel Trujillo. In fact, the first half of our show this week is a Black Zillion show. We have Abel Trujillo, followed up by Thiago Silva. I don't really remember Thiago Silva doing too many radio interviews, so we'll see how this goes, man. But I'm excited to talk to him because he's kind of like a scary dude, one of the best light heavyweights in the world, and I was surprised that we actually were able to book him tonight. Just because of the kind of lack of media that he does. I don't really recall this guy doing too much media, so hopefully we can get something good out of that.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he does very much in the way of media, and he is a scary dude, man. That guy's like. I've heard some legendary training sessions have taken place between him and Hector Lombard down at ATT.
Yeah, I mean, he left ATT probably because of the Hector Lombard stuff, right? Because Lombard's kind of like a big bully in there, isn't he, or something?
Yeah, and Thiago Silva is also, he doesn't. I guess he doesn't really take kindly to bullying. And so I was told by a little birdie that they had to keep them on opposite sides of the gym.
Well, we'll find out, huh? I guess we'll find out when he comes on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I was always kind of curious about the sparring sessions between Hector Lombard and Thiago Silva because I don't know if you've heard the same rumors I've heard because Lombard used to train up there in California with Barnett and Paulson and those guys. You heard the same thing I heard, that pretty much nobody wants to spar with him.
Right.
So
he's a beast, dude. I think a lot of people forget about Thiago. He's had a couple losses in the UFC, but I mean not many. This guy was one of the guys a few years ago who was an undefeated contender. He was rising through the ranks through the UFC, undefeated until he met Lyoto Machida, right? Lyoto knocked him out, and that was the fight that the winner of that fight was going to get the title shot against. Who was it? Rashad Evans.
Yeah. So
Lyoto knocked him out. Was his first loss of his career, and Lyoto ended up fighting Rashad, getting the title. And Thiago Silva hasn't been able to really regain that momentum ever since, But he's beat good guys. Like, he beat, Brandon Vera. Like, he beat the crap out of Brandon Vera,
He hangs tough in there. I mean, he's fought Like he's fought all the best, or I don't want to say all the best guys in the division, but a lot of the best guys in the division. You know, you named off Rashad, Jardine. A lot of people forget about him, but at the time, he you know, he was also one of those guys at the time that was always kind of in the mix right there. You know, he fought Brandon Vera, he fought Alexander Gustafsson, who is pretty much on the cusp of fighting for the title at this point. Yeah, so yeah, he's got a pretty stacked resume, and this fight with Fei Zhao is going to be sick, man. I mean, these guys are going to go straight to war. That's going to be an awesome fight.
It's crazy, you know. It's not like a Gustafsson fight. Like I think that the style matchups that favor Thiago and the fights that he probably enjoys the most are when he's fighting against another stand-up guy, right? Because he kind of likes to brawl. And with Fei Zhao, I don't think he has to worry too much about the takedowns, man. I mean, that's gonna be a firefight, and I don't predict it lasting too long either, because Fei Zhao's an explosive striker. You know, he's a scary dude for sure.
He has big power, and so does Thiago Silva. That's why it's just going to be, you know, pure dynamite when they get in the cage, because somebody's going to go to sleep, and you know, it could come down to who's got the better chin at that point. And you know, Thiago Silva's pretty battle tested with his chin.
I tell you what, man, I was really impressed with Fei Zhao through his whole entire Strikeforce career. You know, I was like, man, this guy's scary, scary, scary. You know, he ended up losing his title, right? But I mean, to Dan Henderson, which no shame in that. But I mean, Fei Zhao's no joke. I mean, he's making his UFC debut, and if anybody hasn't seen Rafael Fei Zhao fight, the guy's the real deal, and he's going to come into the UFC and he's going to make waves. If he doesn't instantly catapult to contender status, he's going to at the very least be known for very entertaining fights.
Oh no, for sure, and yeah, that's the thing about guys like Thiago Silva and Fei Zhao too. You know what you're getting when it's almost like when you're waiting for Vanderlei Silva to fight that night. You know what you're going to get. You're not going to get a guy that is going to clinch you against the fence and try to score points. You're going to get somebody who's going for the finish from bell to bell. They're going to go to the center of the cage and they're going to throw down. That's the way both of those guys like to fight. That's the type of fight that Silva loves to have. You know, you've seen these wars, man. He gets in the mix and he will throw down. Yep. So yeah, that's going to be an awesome fight, and we've got some other good guests too. I mean, we got you know,
Sean Sherk, former UFC lightweight champion. Sean Sherk hasn't fought since 2010. I think he said last October once they return to action that he's not done, but he's just been nagging injuries. So we're gonna get an update from him. I'm curious to know what the heck Sean's been up to. You know what I mean? I kind of know he's been traveling the globe. This guy's like a jet setter, doing big things, but not in the cage. And then following Sean Sherk, we have Cole Miller, which I like Cole Miller a lot, man. He kind of reminds me like his intensity that he brings to the cage, kind of like a Diaz brother. Not outside of the octagon, but once he steps in there, he gives that look, you know, that evil stare, that look of death.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that likes to he gets amped up for fights, and it's a fight to him, and it's cool. He's another cool guy to watch fight because you know, he's gonna bring it, you know, one way or another. That, you know, he's got a sick ground game. He's gonna go for a finish. You know, he had a big win because he really needed to beat Bart Palachevsky, and you know, really we had Bart on like 2 weeks ago, or I think it was about 2 weeks ago. It's in the archives, but we had Bart on, and you know, he was talking about how both guys really needed to win so badly going into the fight, and you know, Cole pulled it off, and you know, I think it's time for him to get a fresh start at 145. You know, I don't know if he feels better at 55. I guess we can find out. You know, really, we can talk to the man himself. You know, later on. You know, so we'll see where his head's at, what weight class he likes better, because he's definitely been successful in both.
He's been successful in both. What I like about him is he's so down for his team. You know, he's a loyal guy, and I really admire that quality in people when they're loyal. And Cole has the ATT tattoo on his arm. You know, he always flies the flag for ATT and stuff like that, and I admire that, and I'm looking really forward to talking to him.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You know, that's the ATT guys. Man, they're very very loyal to their team, and they train really hard. It's definitely cool. It's definitely cool to watch any of those guys get in the cage, man.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Right now we have on the line a guy who's on the opposite side of town from AT&T. He's with the Black Zillions. His name is Abel Trujillo. If a lot of UFC fans don't know about this guy yet, keep your ears out and keep your eyes open because he is coming. He had a dominant performance at UFC on Fox, Diaz versus Henderson, and we have him on the show right now live. Abel, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
How's it going, man?
Everything's going good. Just got practice right now. It's doing a little jiu-jitsu private.
Okay.
So,
okay. Go ahead, George.
Oh no, I said, who are you doing a private with?
His name's Pulga. That's his nickname he goes by. It means the flea in Portuguese, but his name's Alexandre, and he's nasty, like a third-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. So he's getting my jiu-jitsu real crispy, you know, in case he tries to, my opponent tries to go for a submission or something. I'll be ready for it.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, just kind of curious since you mentioned it at all. You know, is that one of the areas that you've been working hard on when you're sharpening up your skills? Before we get into all the fight stuff coming up, I just thought I'd ask you about some of the background.
Okay.
Yeah. So, is that one of the areas you think you're working on most, or?
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I gotta keep my wrestling sharp, my stand-up sharp, and my jiu-jitsu sharp. So I don't overtrain in one area. I try to disperse them equally, you know.
Well, you have a big fight coming up. You know, the guy's undefeated, and this is really when they announced this fight. I was super excited for it because, you know, both you and him have the style to come in there and just go for the finish, and you know, it's going to be a hell of a fight. Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm very excited.
Abel, what do you think about this fight? You know, we've had a lot of the AKA guys on this show, all right, and they talk nothing but the best about this guy Khabib, saying that he's a definite future champion, contender, title challenger. Are you aware of that kind of talk and that hype? And what were your thoughts when you got offered this fight?
You know, I was immediately happy when I found out about the fight because, you know, I feel like this is my time. You know, I'm in my prime right now, and I want to fight the best, you know, ASAP. I don't want to wait and do a couple more fights. So I'm really happy about the fight, you know, and I know he's got a lot of hype behind him. He's younger. I think he's like 24. So I do believe he'll be a future champ one day. But for now, this is my time, I feel, and, you know, I'm going to be the future champ. He's going to have to wait. You know, he's going to get a little stumbling block after this fight. But he's young. He's going to bounce back. I know it, you know.
Well, there you go. Let me ask you this, because this is going to be your second fight in the UFC, and your opponent, Khabib, I think this is going to be his fifth fight. So are you surprised that they're throwing you in the mix, right? Or his fourth fight in the UFC? Are you surprised that they're throwing you in with a guy that has so much hype around him just in your second fight, or I mean, do you welcome that challenge?
Oh yeah, I welcome the challenge. I'm very grateful for them allowing me to fight a number 9 guy, a top 10 guy, and you know, I don't really know what to say. I'm just grateful to fight him. You know, I feel like it's just my time. You know.
So when you look at when you got the word that this was going to be the fight, like you said, it is a big fight, and it's a fight that can really move you up the rankings really quickly because people are already kind of placing his name as a guy that can challenge for the title. So when you got the word of this fight, when you broke it down in your head, I don't know if you had looked at him as a potential opponent, if he was on your radar for this fight coming up, but when you broke it down in your head when you first heard about the fight, what'd you think about it style wise? Like, did you think that it was a good matchup for you?
Yeah, I think it's a very good matchup for me. For the top 10, top 10 guys, I feel like this is probably the best matchup for me, He's a wrestler. He likes to strike. I'm a wrestler. I like to strike. It has like entertainment written all over it. And I know it was from what I hear, a lot of guys didn't want to fight him, and they were turning down fights. And it's the same with me. I was supposed to fight somebody else, and he turned down the fight. I'm not going to say any names, but guys didn't want to fight me or him. So I think they just like, we're going to pair these guys up together and see what happens. They're both entertaining. They can't go wrong with this fight as far as entertainment-wise. So that's what I'm thinking.
So like you said, it's going to be, they're kind of expecting it to be an entertaining fight. I mean, admittedly, when I first saw it announced, I knew it was going to be a hell of a fight. Is there a kind of an expectation to go out there and put on that kind of fight, or is winning really the most important thing at this point?
Man, it's both, because like I said, I want that title shot, and I know if I win, that's going to put me into some, close to title contention. But I want to be a favorite in the UFC, and I want to make a name for myself. The only way you really can do that is if you're entertaining, and that's my style. So, like you said, I'm gonna go for the finish. I just want to finish this guy. If not, it's still gonna be an entertaining fight.
All right. Well, in your fight with Marcus, that was the first fight. That's the first time the UFC audience was introduced to you, and you put on a really dominant, one-sided performance, and it was exciting. Is that indicative of what we're going to be able to expect from you in the future? Are you always going to be that aggressive and just go for the kill basically in every single fight?
Oh yeah, I feel like that was my debut, and you only get one UFC debut. So that's your first impression. And, I'm in my mind, I'm thinking every fight I fight is going to be my debut, because I don't ever want to lose that edge, that hunger. I don't want to lose that. So this is going to be my debut too.
All right. Now, I remember after your debut, you told reporters at the little media scrum backstage that you didn't have any of those nerves that a lot of guys talk about. That for you, the nerves were all the fights before you made it to the UFC, because you knew that if you lost, it was going to make that road to the UFC that much longer. Do you still feel the same way? I know you were kind of caught up in the moment there, but I found that really interesting on a personal note, that you said your nerves were before you got to the UFC. Once you got to the UFC, you kind of took a breath of fresh air, like, oh, I'm finally here, no more pressure. What was that about?
Yeah, well, my career, I was going through some like career suicide. I was 6-4. I came to the Black Zillions. They liked me. I got managed. I got managed by good management, and it was like, hey, if you win 4 fights, I'm sure I can get you in the UFC. So I'm like, damn, I have to win 4 fights. There's no way I can lose. And that was a little pressure. So every fight I went in, it was like, yo, I cannot lose this fight, because, UFC is my dream, and I'm determined to fight in the UFC. So I just, thought of it like that. And, it was a little pressure, but, I found a way to win, each 4 of those fights to get me in the UFC. So finally when I got there, I was like, man, you know what? I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to show out. I'm just going to fight how I fight. I'm not going to say it was like no jitters, but it for the most part, I just wanted just to fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. That you just brought that up, how things kind of turned around. At what point did you start training officially with the Black Zillions and leave where you were training at?
I joined the Black Zillions October 2011, and I was pretty much training on my own. Just with some local guys. I joined into real serious training.
Okay, so pretty much as soon as is that, would you credit that as a turning point? Because you had a 2-fight skid, and then now you're just on this 5-fight tear. You're about to head into this next fight, and would you attribute the training with the Black Zillions for your newfound success, or was there something different that you did, or what would you say made that change for you?
Yeah, coming here, they have a coach for, each aspect of the sport. So, like, I'm focusing on my wrestling, my jiu-jitsu, my stand-up, and everything's coming together kind of perfectly. And, now I have a strength and conditioning coach. And before, that was a big weakness of mine. I was fighting out of adrenaline. I would lose fights because I would get tired, I would gas out, and I would mentally break. And since then, I feel like I gained a lot as a fighter and as a person mentally. I'm well conditioned, and I don't even think about breaking, or I don't fight out of adrenaline. I fight smart. I fight relaxed. So when I do feel like when I explode, I give it 100%. So it's like a give and take. And I just feel like I'm more experienced now, and I know how to fight like a professional mixed martial artist.
Let me ask you this, because your situation is a little bit different than what a lot of the fans and the people on the outside looking in have seen. The Black Zillions have caught a lot of flack for not necessarily get all the fighters having the most success in the cage. You're one of the guys that is very successful from the team. What would you say to those people who are critics of the Black Zillions and some of the performances? I mean, you guys are fighting in world title fights and the best guys in the world, and there can only be one winner and one loser. So it is what it is. But what would you say to people who bring that up?
I just have to say they have to remember the team was established in 2011. So everybody came as individuals. Most are in UFC. So it's like, to learn, to have all these coaches and to say we're a team, it's going to take a year, 2 years, 3 years for us to like fully learn the system, you know what I mean, as the Black Zillions, because everybody's still going off their own style and stuff. And, as far as me, I'm like the hybrid of the Black Zillions, because everybody, like I said, had their own style. They were already in UFC, on and on. But me, I came here, I was very, very green. I was eager to learn. So I'm learning something from this guy. I'm learning something from that guy. I'm learning something from this guy. And I made myself off of these guys, and I kind of put it in my own style. So I feel like that's kind of what made me who I am.
Perfect. Let me ask you this, Abel. You guys have had a few different coaching changes and stuff like that there. Do you feel that that's been necessary? This is always a hot topic of discussion with you guys, because there's so many high-level stars there. So everybody, the magnifying glass is on you. The microscope is on you guys always. But have those coaching changes been beneficial, and do you think that they've been needed? Because you've been with the team for a while. You've been with that team through those transitions.
Yeah, it's just like a family, sometimes you have, good times and bad times, and there's some family members, that just not good sometimes. So it's just like, wasn't a good fit sometimes. And, like you said, we're a new team, so we're just figuring out the chemistry of everybody and what works best with the coaches, how they interact with each other, and how the coaches interact with the students, with the fighters, and we're just trying to figure out our chemistry and everything. So yeah, I think everything was well needed. Everything's falling into place right now, I think. So at least for me it is.
Okay. Let me ask you this: Where are you from? You're from North Carolina, is that right?
Yes.
How many other fighters in the UFC are from North Carolina? Do you know that? Do you know the answer to that question?
As far as I know, one, and that's Derek Brunson.
Okay. How important is it for you to kind of rep for your side of the country there? Because you said one, that's you're right there, but there's not that many, not that many from that area. So I'm just curious to know, is that important to you? Because some fighters are very, very proud of where they come from.
Oh yeah, I'm very proud of where I come from, and I didn't really realize the support system I had from people, until like they hit me up on Facebook or Twitter, or I find out through other people, or I talk to some people personally, and they like telling me how excited they were watching my fight, and it was jumping up and down, stuff like this. I'm like, damn, that gets me excited to hear what I talk about. So I got a great support system in North Carolina, and I definitely want to make them proud.
Okay. Are you a Michael Vick fan?
Uh, I mean, not now. When he first
That's a
came out, when he
no.
was
That's a
doing his
no.
thing, yeah,
George.
I don't think he's doing too good now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, George and I are both from Atlanta, so he was a Atlanta Hawk, or Atlanta Falcon back in the day. So I was just curious.
Yeah. No, when he first came out on the scene, I was like, for real.
Let me ask you a couple more questions, and just because we're talking about your background a little bit, uh, let's just say some random questions here. If you were to tell the UFC fans, what do you do when you're not doing something that is pertaining to your career in mixed martial arts? Because that's all they know you as, is this guy that goes in there and destroys people. And if there's obviously another side, there's a non-fighter side to you. So, how would you explain that side of yourself to people when you're not fighting?
Man, I go visit my daughter, and I spend time with her and her sister, and pretty much we just have fun. We try to make the best of every day, and we just try to, like, whether it's water parks and amusement parks, a regular park, going fishing. Like, I just try to spend as much time with my girls as much as possible when I'm not fighting. So I'm just like, I try to be a kid with them and just have as much fun as possible.
Do they ever get to watch you? Have they ever seen you fight, or have they seen any of your fights?
Yeah, they're my biggest fans. They actually came to one of my fights live, a professional fight. I was the main event, and they came in a cage. They celebrated with me. My daughter was in my arms. It was a good feeling. But they watch on TV all the time. They love it.
Oh, really? They don't get worried for you at all, or no?
Nah, not really. They always say good things. They think I'm gonna win. They're real positive.
Oh, that's good. So, one last thing I wanted to ask you, as long as we're talking about your background a little bit more, if you weren't a mixed martial artist, what would you be doing?
Man, I don't know.
No second career path.
Man, that's hard because I just always envisioned myself fighting. Even when I was like in high school, like I'm gonna be in the UFC, and I kind of made my mind up. That's what I was gonna do. So I never seen myself working a 9 to 5. That's just not the life I want to live.
So you think maybe, and obviously this is no time in the near future, but you probably stay within the sport when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'll be coaching or something. I'll be somehow involved in like wrestling or MMA, whether if it's coaching, something like that along those lines.
Abel, what got you into martial arts? We're talking about the background, and I think it's an important story to tell for the fans who don't know you. While we're building you up in the UFC, and you're getting your feet wet there. What got you into martial arts?
Well, I seen the UFC when I was growing up. I wouldn't say I was little, but I would say I was like a kid, and I seen Vitor Belfort, and I was like, damn, who is this guy? He's an animal, just a beast, and he was destroying people, and I was like, yo, I want to be just like that guy, and that's kind of what started the flame for me. And I went to college wrestling, and there were like some local guys. They were doing MMA, and so I would train with them. And then they had a fight coming up. So I went to go see their fights, and they both won. I'm like, man, I can beat these guys. Like, I want to try this. So my assistant wrestling coach, he got me my first amateur fight, because he's a big fan too. And I had my first amateur fight. I won in like 30 seconds, and I was like, yeah, I want to do this.
So, would you consider yourself a fighter or an athlete? Because there's people seem to distinguish themselves as one or the other. There's a lot of guys that are proud to be a fighter. Some guys are just athletes. What would you call yourself?
I'm a fighter.
Okay. Good to know. That's what I think a lot of MMA fans can appreciate about guys that step into the cages. You have a lot of guys that are more so athletes turned fighter, and then you have other guys that are fighters at heart. With that kind of fighting spirit that turn their love for fighting into a sport, into a career in athletics. So I'm always curious to get what you guys think on that. What you classify yourself as, rather.
Yeah, definitely fighting.
Did you grow up fighting, or did you always keep it sanctioned and in the cage?
I kind of grew up fighting. Yeah, I grew up like I was kind of smaller than people, and I feel like a lot of people tried me, so I got into a lot of fights. So that's kind of where I got my mentality from. I was knowing I wanted to fight because I got into a lot of fights,
Gotcha. Let's bring it back now to not this weekend, but next weekend's fight, May 25th, UFC 160, your fight with Khabib. Give me a prediction. I know a lot of guys don't want to give away their game plan. I'm not going to tell you not to give away your game plan, though. If you want, give us as much information as you want on this fight, and we'll take it.
Yeah, man, I kind of visualize the fight, like meditate on the fight a lot, and I envision me finishing them. I don't have a certain round. I think I could start to wear him down in the first and potentially just break him in the second. But like I said, I don't know. I'll just be happy just to win the fight. Whether I finish him or go to decision, either way, it's going to be a brutal fight.
What do you have to stay away from? If there's one aspect of his game that you have to stay away from to ensure that your hand is raised at the end of those 15 minutes, what is it?
I would say his jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I think his stand-up is. I haven't seen anything that's that good, and his wrestling is good, but my wrestling is good too. So I think he's going to try to finish on the ground somehow with the submission.
Gotcha. Do you think that you have the advantage on the feet?
Yeah, I do. I have the advantage on the feet. We both move a lot. But one thing I noticed he does, I noticed something in his game that he does a lot. So if he tries to do that on me, it's not going to work. So I think I have the advantage. And I don't, since me having one fight, I don't think he really knows me. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay, let me ask you this now. After your fight not this weekend, next weekend at UFC 160, you're fighting a guy ranked in the top 10 now. Where do you go from here? Is there anybody else on your radar? Because obviously your intentions, like you said earlier, is to fight for the title, to climb up the ladder. But who do you have your sights on after this fight?
Now, I don't have any particular person. I just hope, if I finish him in like a good fashion like I did with Vesta, they'll just give me, one more guy. And if I do the same to him, then I get a title shot. Because that's really my goal, and that's what I'm looking for. But it's always one fight at a time. I can't get ahead of myself, of course.
I got you. I mean, obviously, if you perform in this fight like you did in your last fight, they're gonna undoubtedly have to give you somebody with some star power and some name recognition behind them, someone in the closer to that number one slot. You agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Trujillo, George?
Oh man, really, it's going to be an exciting fight. I'm just let him know I'm really looking forward to it. I know a lot of the fans are looking forward to it. I don't know if you've read any of the forums, man. If you ever get on the internet, if you ever have time, you should actually go to some of the forums and see when the fight was first announced and read the first few pages of the thread to see what people think. It's mostly like people think damn near someone might be carried out of that octagon when that fight was announced. They really do have already labeling it fight of the night before you have even gotten there. So, you might be getting a congratulations on more than one level if you get the fight of the night bonus too.
Yeah, I've been told by a couple of people that, man, it has Friday night written all over it. You know, I'm just like, thank you. You know, I appreciate that. You know, I can see it going that way too, though. You know.
Right
Yeah.
on, right on. All right, Abel. Well, man, just to let you know, when I got the call to get you on the show, I was very thrilled. I was very impressed by you and your debut, as I know George was too, and probably all the fans that watched it. So we wish you nothing but the best in your upcoming fight, man. And let's get you back on after the fight again, so we can get the post-fight interview. We got the pre one down. Let's get the after one too, okay?
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Best of luck to you, okay? We'll talk soon.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Mr. Matthews, there
It's
he
gonna
was.
it's going to be a good fight, man. That's going to be a really, really good fight. When I'm not kidding, man. When if you go look at the pages of the thread when that fight was announced, people are like, "OMG!"
Well,
you see all the gifs of like buildings exploding and and stuff like that.
Well, here's the thing. You know, with every aspect of modern life across the entire globe, you have people who fit a part, you know, like looks-wise. Like, you can look at Abel Trujillo, and if you guys don't know what he looks like, Google him, man. If you don't know what he fights like, Google him. Find the fights. Look at his pictures. This guy looks scary. Not only does he fight scary, but he actually looks like a scary dude, you know. And when you mix his ability with his appearance, you kind of have like a future star in the making. There's a lot of anticipation for him to return to the cage after his UFC debut, and UFC gave him a top 10 guy to do it in. So it's an interesting fight. I don't know how this guy will perform against the top 10 guy. This is his first top 10 opponent, you know. Does he have potential? He absolutely does. If nothing else, he's definitely an intimidating dude to look at, and he has a good kind of image that they can promote.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and he's the exact type of fighter that you put on a card, and like I said, you're going to get a good fight. And we saw him fight. We were in Seattle when he fought,
right?
So we saw it, and it was damn impressive, man. I remember sitting there and looking at you after the fight was over, and like, damn, that guy's legit.
Yep.
So for sure, it's going to be a great fight, and it would be a big win. And I'm not counting Nurmagomedov out.
Dude.
Believe me, that dude is awesome.
I mean, you can't. Here's the thing. This is a fight between two dudes who are really good. Whoever wins is instantly catapulted into probably one or two fights out from a contender shot. You know, I mean, they're going to be instantly put in the limelight.
Yeah, no, the people. Like I was telling Abel just now, is that people have already kind of named Habib. They're like, oh, he's going to be challenging for the belt. He's challenging for the belt, and I've heard a lot of great things from him, from people inside the gym too. He's supposedly that good, but then again, I hear the same things about Abel too. So that's what makes it a really interesting fight, and both guys go for it. If you just look at if you don't even have a chance to look at the fights themselves, just look at the records and the finishing rates. Look at the amount of submissions and TKO stoppages, and for both those guys, and you'll see that they come in there to end shit, and it's going to be a hell of a fight.
It is. So who's up next, Georgie? Who do we got?
We got Thiago Silva.
Another scary dude. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So I like to see like the scary, intense people fight. You know what I mean? Like these intense. I asked Abel the question, "Are you a fighter or an athlete?" He said, "I'm a fighter." You know. Those guys that have that kind of mentality are the guys that I get excited to tune in and watch.
Oh, no, for sure. He's a. We talked about it right when we got on the air. He is absolutely a scary guy.
Yeah, he epitomizes that whole freaking philosophy of I'm a fighter.
He's a really intense guy. He really is, and it's pretty apparent. And I think that most UFC fans have seen him fight. At this point, like we were talking about earlier, he's fought who's who in the division, guys who have been around for a while, some guys who aren't even with the promotion anymore, but very good popular names. And I think people are really kind of aware of what he's about at this point, and that's why it makes his fight with Fei Zhao even more fun because the UFC fans may not know who Fei Zhao is, but again, if you've seen any of his previous fights, you know that this is going to be a serious, serious scrap.
That's right. That's right.
So we will see. We'll see what happens. What do you think? How do you think that fight's going to go down?
I have no clue, man. It's hard. That's a fight I can't predict. You know, I'm normally really quick to throw out my opinions on fights, but if anything I've learned is Thiago Silva is a beast. It's hard to bet against him. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's also hard to bet against Fei Zhao. Like I said, when Fei Zhao was the Strikeforce champ, dude, I was nothing but impressed with him. You know, I mean, I watched him fight live several times, and he hails from a good team. He hails from the Black House camp. He trains over there with Anderson Silva, Machida, you know, Jacare, all those guys. So who knows what's going to happen, man. All I know was you don't want to miss that fight. That's one. I think that fight's almost more exciting than the main event.
It's almost whoever lands first is going to win. Whoever lands clean first. It's almost the way it is with fights like this. It's two dudes who are going to go to the center of the cage and they're going to throw down. They're both finishers. They're not there to score points. They're both finishers. They're both really intense, and they're both heavy hitters. And they're big guys. You know, these are light heavyweights. And when they connect with a lot of power. And it really is going to be one of those fights where anything can happen, and the best chin may survive at that point. So I guess we're going to see. But you know, both guys are really battle tested, and Thiago Silva, you know, he's legendary as far as his sparring sessions are concerned too. I mean, he's intense on every level in his training, heading into the fights, the whole nine. So really, it has the makings of you know, we said fight of the night earlier, but this really epitomizes those words.
It does, and we actually have him on the line right now. Thiago, are you there?
Yeah, I am. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us tonight, man. Let's just get right into the interview. We won't waste too much of your time. I know you're right in the middle of camp. You're a busy guy. Tell us how things are going since you've made the move to the Black Zillions.
Yeah, but everything's been doing good, you know. I've been training a lot, you know. I'm really enjoying my new team, you know, my teammates, everything, you know. Yeah, like what can I say? Everything is doing perfect, you know. Nothing to complain about it.
You have a really tough fight coming up against Rafael Cavalcante, UFC on Fuel TV 10 in the co-main event. You guys are both very good fighters, but how do you see this fight going down?
Yeah, you know, like I said, you know, Rafael is a very, very tough guy, you know. But I think I'm tough too, you know. I'm doing my job, you know. I'm training hard every day, and I see a tough fight, you know. Both have a good stand-up, you know. But I'm going to knock him out. That's what I can say, you know. I'm going to win, you know. Doesn't matter what. I'm going to do my job.
Do you said you're going to knock him out, but do you have? Are there any reservations of standing with him? Are you okay standing with him, or do you think you should take the fight to the ground? What is your preference?
I'm okay to stand with anyone, you know, and I think I feel comfortable on my feet, you know. Also, I'm a black belt too, you know, so I would like to knock him out, of course, you know. But fights, we never know. Of course, I'm gonna try to use the right opportunity, you know, to finish the fight. If I need to fight, if I need to finish on the ground, okay, let's do it, you know. But like I said, you know, I feel comfortable on my feet. You know, I want to keep this fight on the stand.
What does this fight mean for you as far as fighting in Brazil, right? And not only fighting in Brazil, but fighting another Brazilian. Is that all good with you?
You know, I'm very happy to fight in Brazil because I don't fight in Brazil for like 7 years. You know. Actually, since I moved to the U.S., you know, I never fought in Brazil. I'm living here for like 6-7 years. So yeah, for sure, it's a great opportunity, to fight in Brazil. To be honest, I don't like to fight Brazilian guys, because we're friends, I know Rafael, we are very good friends, we know each other for a long time, but this is my job, and I have to do what I have to do. That's very simple.
I'll tell you this, man. You're one of the scariest guys in the UFC. When you step into the cage, you look like you want to kill your opponent, right? I admire that about you. In fact, it's one of the reasons why it's one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of yours, because of that intensity. Are we going to see that in this fight? Are we going to see the same Thiago Silva, knowing that you're fighting your friend, or does the friendship get totally put on the side and you're going to go out there and try to kill this guy like every other opponent?
No, definitely you guys are going to see the same Thiago Silva, even more aggressive, because friends, business, he wants what I want. I want the belt. He wants the belt, So I'm gonna come after my dream, I want to be a champion. I want to fight hard, and that's what I'm gonna do. We're friends, but we're friends outside the cage. Inside the cage, it's totally different, So definitely, I'm going hard. I'm moving. I'm gonna be intensive. I'm gonna be very aggressive. I'm gonna move forward as always I do.
Thiago, you have not been as active as I'm sure you've wanted to be in the last few years, and it's probably been very frustrating. 2 no contests. What do you think that you need to do from this point forward to get that rhythm back? Because you came in here, you came in on such a streak, knocking people out, and you've had such success. But in the last few years, you haven't been that as active as you've hoped, and had some mixed results. What do you think you need to do from here forward to get back to where you were and closer to that title?
Yeah, like I said, what the last 2 years was very frustrating for me, but I made my mistakes and I paid for it, you know what I mean? But the thing is right now, I'm very focused, on my fight, on my career, on my life. So what I want to do is just fight hard, because I think the best way to stay on top, you got to fight hard, you know what I mean? You got to train hard. You got to keep your mind free and do what I have to do. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm focused on my train. I'm keeping my head free. Stopping doing shit. Like I did. But yeah, definitely this.
You brought that up just now, and just thought I'd ask you about that, because it seems to be a pretty consistent and popular thing now that fighters are getting caught for their post-fight drug tests, not for anything performance enhancing, but just basically marijuana. Pat Healy yesterday had the same problem and got his bonuses taken away. Do you think that these kind of penalties are fair for something like marijuana?
It's very complicated, to say about that, but what I think, couple people, a lot of guys, they like to drink, I don't drink, I like to smoke, I don't smoke anymore because I really can't, but I used to like a lot, because it helps me to relax, it's not like a drug as everybody say, so actually it's legal in California, but to be honest, I don't think it's fair, because it doesn't change your performance, inside the cage.
Makes sense. I think most of us agree with you, Thiago. Let's ask you this, because I told you I wouldn't keep you too long. We were talking about a couple things before you came on the air. One of them was the rumors when you were with AT&T or ATT, right? You were over there. You were training. You were one of their fighters. What caused you to leave? Was there an actual problem with Hector Lombard over there? Is that something that was real, or was that fabricated?
No, of course not. I like Hector a lot. He's a very good friend of mine. Actually, he was one of the best trainers I had when I was training over there. I just left the American Top Team because of the training over there. wasn't that good, you know, I expect, you know. That's why I left America Top Team, not because of Hector or something like that, you know. Like I said, I really like Hector. He's a very, very good, very, very good fighter, you know, and a very good person.
Okay, good to know, because I've heard some rumors, and I wanted to clear that up while we had you on the air. What about the Black Zillions are you happy with? Do you feel that your training there is way better than at ATT?
Man, I feel great at the Black Zillions right now, you know. They have a very good facility, you know, very good coaches. The teammates, we know we're very together, you know, we help each other. So I'm so happy, you know. It's like, how can I say? It's my dream coming true, you know.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm a man of my word. You've given us your time today, Mr. Silva. I wish we could have you on longer, but I thank you for coming on and joining our show. George, is there any questions you want to ask him before we let him go? You get the last shot, bro, if you want it.
You know, I think you covered it. You know, the listeners are kind of curious about what the sparring sessions were like between you and Hector Lombard.
That's a lie, man. That's a lie. Hector, like I said, Hector he's a very nice guy. You know, very good friend. I like him very, very much. You know, I have nothing to say bad against him. You know, just good things. You know, he's a very good guy, man.
Absolutely. Like I said, we were just because basically because both of you are so intense, people assume that the sparring sessions were probably crazy, that you guys will be training so hard with each other.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. You know, people when they see me and him training, you know, it's like a life. You know, we really train hard. You know, we try to knock out each other. You know, but, you know, I mean, like hard training is fight. You know, if you train too soft, you know, when you step inside the cage, you know, you're going to feel the pressure. But as much harder as you're training, you know, it's going to be better when you fight. You know, that's what I mean, you know, and I think he has the same mentality, you know, and when we used to train together, we used to train very, very hard, you know.
Perfect. All right, Thiago. Well, man, I know our time is limited, so we'll let you go. Thank you very much for coming on BJPen.com radio today, and best of luck in your fight. Can we please get you on after your fight so we can get the post-fight interview and we can have a little bit more time with you so we can get more questions done?
Well, of course, man. Anytime. You just let me know.
All right, perfect.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much, sir. You have a good night, man.
You too, man. Bye, guys. Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Man, what I'd probably pay. Honestly, I'd pay the $59.95 to watch the footage of the Hector Lombard Thiago Silva sparring session from ATT.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting. You know, unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of time with Thiago tonight. You know, but luckily he came on the air and you know he gave us his time.
Yeah, no, for sure. We got his really, you know. I can only imagine that his focus is going to be seriously on this fight at this point because he really needs to climb back to where he was, and this is a big fight and one that requires a lot of attention because, man, Feijiao's no joke.
He is absolutely no joke.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough. That's going to be a tough fight for both guys, but man, I just picture a war. You know, maybe it only goes around. It might only go around, but that round is going to be really, really good. So, you know, we'll see what happens. And still left on the show, we got coming up. We have Sean Sherk.
Sean Sherk, man, you know, I'm excited to talk to him. I really was excited to talk to Thiago Silva. You know, I really wish we would have had more time with him. I can't stress that enough. So anybody who was expecting a super long, in-depth, amazing interview, sorry we couldn't give that to you. Hopefully he gave us some good stuff. What did you think about his assessment, George, on marijuana use? He said, I like to smoke. He's like, he got busted for smoking weed, right? He got busted for the fake pee thing before, and he got busted for marijuana the second time, right? So this is a guy with experience, and he just came out and said like, "Yo, I like smoking weed. It's not a drug. I don't like to drink. Some people like to drink. I like getting high." What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty consistent with what a lot of fighters say, right? Pretty much
Dude.
every fighter that is. I mean, really, and he predicated that with, well, a lot of my friends like to drink. I don't really like to drink. I don't really enjoy drinking. I like to smoke and relax.
Yeah.
So, obviously, it's an alternative. He's using it as an alternative to alcohol. I mean, some people abuse that, or some people use that. But
yeah, here's the bottom line. Okay, you have a guy like Pat Healy who goes on and puts on, he puts on the performance of a lifetime against Jim Miller. He gets $135,000 of bonus money. He fails for marijuana, and this guy lost his bonuses. He lost $135,000 for hitting a joint. I don't agree with that. I don't personally smoke weed, but I am not against the use of marijuana for whatever purposes. I think it's way safer than alcohol. It's just my opinion, and whatever.
I kind of wanted his opinion on it, but the real issue is, and they can just wave this in your face, is it's illegal. They say it's against the rules, and so you have to follow those.
Yeah,
rules.
It's illegal, but it's not illegal for a guy like Matt Riddle, and when he has a license to use it in California, in Nevada, and it's not illegal for Nick Diaz, who has a license to use it in California. You know what I mean? Like, there are states. How many states, George? 16 states where medical marijuana is legalized, and there are 2 states in the country where recreational use of marijuana is legalized. So I can see for Pat in New Jersey, I don't think that New Jersey has medical marijuana laws. Maybe they do. I don't think they do. But
they do.
Do they?
Yes.
Okay.
They do. They're like, I do believe they're like the newest state.
And where's Pat Healy from?
He's not from. Is he not from? No. Jim Miller's from New Jersey. Pat Healy is not from. Pat Healy's from
Oregon or Washington.
Yes.
Both legal states, right? Both legal states. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that if your state, if you live in a state that allows you to use marijuana, then you shouldn't be penalized. If you're fighting in a state that allows you to use marijuana, you should also not be penalized. If you're fighting in like Kansas City, Kansas, and you're from there where there's no marijuana, or Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, like somewhere in the Bible Belt, okay, I can understand them penalizing you. But if you're a legal user, if you're abiding by the laws, if you're not breaking any rules, it's definitely not a performance enhancer. There's nothing wrong with it, using it.
I think that, like I said, I think that they're just looking at it from, it may be legal to use within your state, like, the privacy of your home, recreationally or whatever it is, medicinally, in most cases, within your state, but that it's specifically not allowed for use within athletic competition. And whether it's performance enhancing or not, it's simply because it states that in the rules is enough for them to say, we're taking your bonus money, you're in trouble, and yada yada yada. I don't see it as a big deal. I think that it is no different than, and this is the honest to God truth, it is no different than you taking and slamming an energy drink before you walk out to the octagon. Okay, if you slammed an energy drink, if you took pre-workout, I've taken pre-workout that, seriously, I thought I was going to shoot lightning bolts out my fucking ass. It was ridiculous. Like, there's so much stuff in some of these pre-workouts. It's, I can't imagine how that could be legit if marijuana isn't, So, I think that's a double standard, If a golfer can get LASIK on their eyes, that's performance enhancing. I mean, God didn't give you those fucking eyes, or you know what I'm saying? Those aren't natural. You made those things work correctly. So that's my whole thing, is that you're kind of like skewing it in your favor. You're playing both sides. So, um, it is what it is until they change it. We're just kind of stuck with the way it is. But you know, I think eventually, it's just going to change.
It should.
Well,
It definitely should. And like I said, I don't even smoke weed, but I just feel bad for the people. I really feel bad for Pat Healy, man. You know what I mean? Like, dude lost $135,000. Because he failed the test. He got suspended 3 months. Boo-hoo on the suspension, right? Slap on the wrist suspension. They took $135,000 away from this dude.
I hope he didn't buy any of those guns he talked about.
I know, man. I talked to him last night a little bit on text, and he's pretty down. Sucks for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can only imagine, you're riding the high, you win this huge fight, you get show money and win money. He's only going to get the show money now that we're going to know about at least. The bonus money, not gone. What if he would have gone out the next day and, applied for a mortgage and like got a house and, there would have been a big problem.
Yep.
That's crazy. It's a lot of money for such a small error in my views. That's some expensive weed, man.
That's
130 grand.
that is some expensive weed, bro. $135,000 sack of bud.
Yeah. So hopefully, hopefully, like they are able to kind of figure this out.
Hopefully the UFC takes care of him behind the scenes. You got to remember too. Let's factor in the fact that he was a Strikeforce guy, right? And we all know what happened with Strikeforce. Those guys, Pat and all of his Strikeforce peers, they were put on the shelf so long. While they were in limbo and not getting any fights, waiting for a show, waiting for the merger. You know what I mean? Waiting. He finally gets a fight. He finally gets a payday, and boom, gone.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. That's actually a big thing. I didn't even think about that. He did sit around. He did get fights, but definitely not as frequently as somebody on a UFC roster who's getting 3 fights a year, guaranteed, no matter what. They're getting their 3 in. Some people may get more, and yeah, if he's not fighting, he's not getting paid, and it's a serious financial strain. And now you get a couple this in, he's like, oh, I got to, he figures he probably got, it's an extra $130,000. If you're banking on that, that is a big difference,
Yeah. Oh, well.
So,
Yeah, poor Pat. Sorry, Pat, if you're listening, man. We're sorry for you, bro. We feel for you, man.
definitely. So, like I was saying, we still have Sean Sherk. I have not heard a word from him in a while. I'm kind of curious. When you told me that you got him on, that I was really excited because, I think I even texted you and asked you, I was like, have you heard anything from Sean Sherk? And you're like, yeah, I talked to him the other day, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, wow, it's crazy because I'm kind of curious where, he's kind of a name that was always, on the radar and haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah, but we're gonna get him. We're gonna get him on the line here in a few minutes. I'm curious too. What prompted me actually getting him on the radio show was I was on the underground forums, right? Which everybody goes there. And there was a thread about him, like, well, where the F is Sean Sherk or something like that, or what's up with Sean Sherk? And I was like, what is up with Sean Sherk? We haven't heard from that guy in a long time. So luckily me, I happen to know some people, so I hit up Sean, and I was like, let's get you on the show. And we've been talking back and forth for a few weeks. Like I said, he's been traveling the globe, this guy. I'm sure he's going to tell us all about it when he gets on the air, but, he's been all over the place. Finally, he's home this week, and we're gonna get to talk to him. So we'll figure all that out when he's on. Hopefully, he'll tell us about when he wants to fight. I know he said he wanted to fight this year. Hopefully, there's no injuries, and it would be good to see one of the old guards come in and kind of mix things up with all these new lightweights that have emerged.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before, before we went on the air when it was just me, you and I talking, but he has only lost to what people would consider the best fighters of their era and in that weight class, in their respective weight classes.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking like in lightweight, he was the champion at lightweight at one point, right? He lost to BJ Penn, and he lost to Frankie Edgar. Outside of that, in the 155-pound division, he lost to nobody. So, I mean, there's no shame in those losses, you know?
That fight with Edgar was close, too.
It was close, man. It was. The fight with BJ wasn't so close, but the fight with Frankie Edgar, definitely close.
Yes, that fight was close. And, like I said, you look at his record and you're like, oh, he's lost to Matt Hughes, Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greats in that weight class. Then you have, GSP, I don't have to say anything, okay? We already know. The guy's still the reigning champ, okay? BJ, two-division champ, one of the best of all time, without question. And then Edgar, who's been down there doing work in those weight classes. Having close fights and holding the title, having close fights with the current champ,
Here's an amazing statistic, okay? His first professional loss was at UFC 42 in 2003 against the Matt Hughes. Okay? Then he didn't lose again until he fought GSP at UFC 56.
That's,
I mean, those are his first two professional losses. No shame in his game whatsoever, bro. It's he hasn't fought since 2010, and here we are in 2013. We're almost 3 years removed from his last fight, but I mean, his resume is pretty on point, bro. He beat Kenny Florian. He beat Nick Diaz. He beat Hermes Franca. These are all guys that are huge. They're scrappers. They're tough dudes in their time. And he beat them. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious how he stacks up with the other guys in the weight class.
I mean, dude, it's a different game now, bro. From 2010, as fast as this sport is moving, I mean, it's a different game. But
I'll tell you what, though, skill wise, if I just assuming that we were to see this exact same Sean Sherk that we saw in 2009. 2010. Let's just say that guy shows up. If I look at the skills, he actually matches up really well with all those guys. With Gilbert, with Ben, with everybody. He actually matches up really well.
Could he beat Nick Diaz again, you think?
That's a stylistic
nightmare for Nick, huh?
Nightmare for Nick. Because here's the thing, man. Sean Sherk has got an incredible top game. Like, it's very underrated. He's small, he's compact, he's a good grappler. He passes guard really, really well. He's got good guard passing. When you look at it, he's a guy that can take you down. He can grind you out in the bottom and not get submitted. Stylistically, he can give people a lot of problems. And he doesn't go away easy either. It's not like, he doesn't have the best reach for that weight class or for most weight classes, but he gets by with it, and his boxing is pretty crisp for somebody who is, originally a grappler.
Right. Only stopped twice in his career.
Yeah, I mean, who's to stop? Sean or BJ and GSP or?
Yeah, George St. Pierre took him out in the second.
Yeah. So GSP and BJ, BJ's a finisher, so I'm not surprised about any of that, and so basically, we'll see how it goes. We're gonna see where he's at, like how he's gonna, if he's gonna come back to the weight class. I don't know. These are all the questions that I've been curious of, which is why we got him on the show, and. Like I said, again, I think he matches up still pretty well, assuming that he's still been training hard, and he was really one of the hardest workers in mixed martial arts. His workouts are legendary. He's like one of the first people. Him and Rich Franklin were two of the first people that I ever saw them put their crazy conditioning regimens out on the internet, and people would see them and be like, oh my God, when does this end? Sherk was like a machine. And now it's commonplace. Everybody posts their conditioning regimens, and they all kind of look something like that. Somebody using a training mask or whatever it is. But he's one of the first. He's one of the first guys that I remember doing that, where I sat there and watched a training session, and I watched it on YouTube and felt like I needed to go drink a coconut water and have a protein shake after I was done watching it. I was so tired.
Well,
So,
the awesome thing about guys like Mr. Sherk is that he doesn't do a lot of interviews. He's one of the greatest mixed martial artists of our era. And so when you get a chance to talk to somebody like him, a former champion, it's a real privilege and honor. And George, we actually have him on the line right now. Sean, are you there?
I'm here. How you guys doing?
Awesome. Doing good, doing good. Thanks for taking the time out with us tonight, man, and talking to us.
Yeah, not a problem, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
We were talking about this earlier, Sean. What prompted our contact with you? Not only is it just an honor to have you on the show, and get an interview with you, but there have been on the forums, like especially the Underground and the other popular MMA forums. There's been a lot of chatter about you lately. People haven't heard from you, and they've been wondering what's going on with Sean. So I was like, let's try to reach him. Let's try to get him on the show so we can get an update, not just for us, but for all the fans out there. So with that being said, tell us what you've been up to. I know you've been traveling a lot, but what's been going on?
Well, like you said, I've been running around. I'm doing a lot of seminars, a lot of training seminars all over the place. So I've been keeping myself busy doing that. And then, I've got my training mat that's been doing very well. So that's been keeping me busy. And I've recently bought a couple of houses to renovate and flip. So I've been busy with that stuff as well. So I've kind of got my hands full doing a scale of different things.
Now, I remember, I think it was either like September or October of last year, you came out and said that you had hoped to book a fight sometime mid to early 2013. Is that still on your agenda, or are you too busy with all these other things?
I got a lot on my plate. I like to keep myself really busy. I've always been that way. Even when I was fighting a couple times a year, I was still keeping myself busy with seminars and appearances and sponsorship stuff. So, right now, again, it sounds like a broken record, but the body's pretty beat up and it's pretty injured, and I'm trying to find other things to do with my time outside of MMA and outside of fighting. So, would I love the fighting? And yeah, of course I would. I guess I'm just kind of in a holding pattern and trying to find other things to do with myself in the meantime until, if I do decide to schedule something. I've talked to the UFC about it on several occasions, and, Joe Silva says, we're ready for you whenever you want. Just give us a call and we'll book a fight for you. So, we'll see.
What do you think about everything that has happened since you last fought with the UFC? The Fox deal, they have their own news show now, UFC Tonight on Fuel TV. Now the FX, the Fox Sports 1 stuff is coming up. I mean, there's so many things where even though you're not fighting, I'm sure you're more than welcome to join a panel here and there or hop on a TV show and this and that. Is that something that you're interested in doing, or are you happy with keeping busy outside of the MMA world right now?
As far as broadcasting goes, if that's what you're asking, and not really, I'm not really interested in doing that. It's not something that I could see myself doing for a living, and so I'm not really interested in doing that. And I don't follow MMA too much. I do have a lot of stuff going on, and I know who's who in the industry, and I know there's a lot of big things that have been going on with Fox and with women's MMA and stuff like that. So that's great. I mean, the sport's growing, it's blowing up. It's one of the biggest things on TV right now, and the fans are loving it. And everywhere I go, everyone asks me about it. So, it's been pretty cool. But as far as my future in MMA, broadcasting, I don't think that'll be in my future, to be honest with you.
You just brought it up, like. We were talking about what's keeping you out of the cage and your injuries and things like that. What specifically has been bothering you the most? Obviously, you've had so many fights and high level fights against the best guys in the world too. we rattled off the names, but guys like GSP, BJ Matthews, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of stuff has piled up that's kind of bothered you the most over the years? That really is forced this kind of hiatus for you to kind of take a step back and recoup.
Well, I mean, it's just many, many years of wear and tear. I don't want to get into specifics as far as what's injured or what's beat up. Just because if or when I do step back in the cage, I don't want my opponents pinpointing anything specific. So just a lot of years of wear and tear. I've been competing since I was 7 years old. I was always one of the top wrestlers in the state. Wrestled national tournaments and state tournaments, and ever since I was 7, and then MMA 43 fights over the course of 12 years. That's quite a bit. I fought as many times as 12 times in a year once. So plus working a full-time job. So that's just a lot of years of wear and tear, and stuff catches up with you. I'm going to be 40 years old in August, so. It's just part of the game. It's a young man's sport, and you can't do it forever. And I think the best athletes and the smartest athletes in the world are able to be not only successful in their industry, but then branch out and do other things afterwards. And I'm not saying I'm done by any means, but I'm definitely focusing on the afterwards right now.
It's funny. It's funny you said that, because we were before you got on the air, we were talking about how. We were looking at your record. We were like, well, when you break down his record, he's only lost to like guys who are Hall of Famers, like 2 division world champs, or people who are still on top of the sport in some cases, and you've beaten a who's who. You've beaten you've beaten the Nick Diaz's, and again, we were talking about the Frankie Edgar fight. I actually thought you won the fight, and with that being said, that being such a close fight, you beat Evan Dunham, who's still fighting in the division. I still think you match up really well with him. So is it just it never looked like your skills were diminishing. So it was seriously just something about just taking some time off just to recoup. It wasn't anything about like, I'm not really having fun with this anymore. I don't really feel like training.
No, not at all, man. I love this sport. If I could take 20 years off and start over, I would. There's no doubt. I love it. My mind wants to fight. My body wants to fight. I'm not burned out. I'm not tired with it by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, like I said, the injuries have piled up, and I really started feeling. I haven't fought a fight healthy since I fought George St. Pierre back in 2005. I've had serious injuries every single time I've stepped in the cage for every single fight, and I've had many surgeries. A lot of times, what kept me out of the ring for so long after a fight was because I had to have surgery. I fought with torn rotators. I fought with dislocated foot, torn knees, bulged discs. I mean, I fought with injuries on top of injuries, and I've done it ever since 2006. So every fight I've had since Nick Diaz, I've been seriously injured. So that takes a toll on you. Stepping into a cage, a 12-week training camp, and usually my injuries would start piling up right around 5 weeks before the fight. Because I do train so hard, so right around 5 weeks, things would just start to pile on, and I would usually get hit with some kind of serious injury, and I'd have to find a way to finish my training camp and step into the cage maybe 75%. So that's what my issue was, and I've said it in many interviews after the Evan Dunham fight. I've fought injured for so long, just not something I'm willing to do anymore. I'm not willing to put my neck on the line when I'm only 75% healthy. I only want to fight if I'm 100%.
That makes perfect sense, Sean. Now, in today's world, in today's MMA landscape, you don't see a lot of that. You don't see a lot of guys getting injured in training camp and then fighting through it anyways and putting on a show. A lot of guys, it seems like every card, and especially last year, it was an unprecedented amount of injury withdrawals and stuff like that. Do you think that these guys have the right mentality to pull out when they get injured, or do you think that somebody like you who just went on and fought on anyways, do you think that there should be more of that?
Well, that I guess I could answer that 2 different ways. I came up through this industry when there wasn't money. I came up when there wasn't fame. I worked a full-time job my first 15 fights. I worked a part-time job all the way up until I won the UFC world title. So,
as far as me pulling out of a fight when I was injured, I couldn't. Otherwise, I wouldn't. If I pulled out of a fight, I wouldn't have made a house payment. You know, I mean that's how important fighting was to me, and that's how important winning was to me. And that mentality just carried over to the point where even when I did start making money, I just wasn't willing to pull out of a fight for an injury if I could still fight it. And I did pull out of fights because of injuries, so I'm not going to pretend like I haven't. You know, I pulled out of my fight with Thiago, a grade 2 separation of my shoulder. I couldn't move my arm for 6 weeks. I couldn't fight. It just wasn't going to happen. You know, I had to pull out of a fight with, who was it? I'm sorry, the name's drawing a blank right now, but I had, 9 or 10 stitches over my face, a week before the fight. I wasn't going to step into a cage with that, and they probably wouldn't have let me anyway. But, the majority of the time, 99% of the time, I stepped into the cage injured, and I don't know, maybe some guys have a different mentality. Maybe they didn't come up the hard ways like some of us old school guys did. Hats off to them. And like I said, I'm not willing to do that anymore. So if other guys aren't willing to do that, that's their prerogative.
Okay. Now, what's it going to take to get you back in the cage?
Jim Miller. Sorry, go
Jim
ahead.
Miller,
Okay.
yeah. I said, what's
yeah, I'm sorry. I knew it would come to me.
No worries. What's it going to take to get Sean Sherk back in the cage?
Like I said, I've said many times, the right opponent would be one. Former champ would be a lot of fun. I want to get in there with somebody who has something to offer me. I've got no interest in fighting any up and comers. I don't want to be any kind of a stepping stone for anybody, because I think I'm a good fight for anybody, whether it be the champ or whether it be anybody on down the line. So I don't want to be any kind of a stepping stone. I'd like to fight somebody who has something to offer just as much as I do, offer me just as much as I have to offer them, and and the health factor. So those are kind of the two factors.
Okay, makes sense. So let's just say, and I'm not by any means trying to pick a fight here, but let's just say you're feeling good. The UFC calls you up and say, "Hey, you know what? Let's throw together this BJ Penn rematch." Is that something that you would consider?
I think that'd be a lot of fun. BJ's one of those guys. He's won world titles in 2 weight classes, and he's beaten the best of the best. And obviously he beat me, so that would be something that would be a lot of fun. Definitely. A lot of factors would have to fall into play, but that'd be something that I think would be pretty cool.
Let's talk about the rest of the division. I know you said you haven't been able to follow too much, but I assume that you may have kept track of the lightweights. The landscape has changed a little bit. A lot of the WC and the Strikeforce guys have kind of made their name in the UFC now, and fans are giving them a little more respect, as opposed to just looking at them as second-tier guys at this point. When you look at the division now, who are you most impressed with, and how do you think that, assuming everything, that if you weren't injured, let's just say you were at 90%, 95%, you could go into the cage like that. How do you think you match up with all those guys, with the Gilbert Melendezes, the Ben Hendersons, etc.?
I think I match up great with every one of those guys, just like I always would have. I know Gilbert's been around for a real long time, and I knew he was going to be Ben's toughest fight. I thought, if anybody in the division was going to potentially dethrone Henderson, it would have been Gilbert. And I know the fight was close. I didn't see it, so I can't comment too much on it. But he's definitely going to make his mark. And you got Josh Thompson back. That guy's tough as they get. He just beat Diaz. Nobody's ever knocked out Diaz before, and Josh was able to make a big exclamation point when he comes out and does that. He's still got guys like Ray, who's top tier guy, and you've got I don't know what Frankie's going to do, but I think either division he goes to, he's going to be a title contender. And the guy that's most impressing me, I would have to say, would be Ben Henderson. He came from the WEC, and he never had a warm-up fight or an opportunity to kind of get his wheels going. They threw him Bocek for his first fight in the UFC. Then they threw him Jim Miller. Then they threw him Clay Guida. Then they threw him Frankie Edgar. He's fought who's who of the division. He's beat every one of them so far. So you gotta give him his credit for that.
So let me ask you this. Since fighting isn't necessarily on the radar, you got other things going on. Yeah, while you're nursing these injuries, are these something that the UFC's fighter insurance pays for?
No, I have my own insurance. My insurance is through a better insurance than theirs is. I think they only do 80/20 plus there's co-pays and all that kind of stuff. So my insurance is good. So I take care of all that stuff myself. I always have.
So do you expect you've had one of the longest tenures with the company. Like we were saying, you fought everybody from various generations and things like that, and done well. Do you expect that? Do you expect to be involved with the company or even with mixed martial arts on some level for the rest of your life, or do you thinking I may get away from this? If you're doing a real estate thing or if you're doing other things right now that you're interested in.
I'd like to stay involved with MMA for the rest of my life. A big part of my life has been all about competition and wrestling and boxing and mixed martial arts, and I love it. I love this. Like I said, I would do this forever if that was an option, but unfortunately there's a window of opportunity and eventually that goes away. So I'll do it for as long as I can. I'm still hitting the seminar circuit really hard. I'm doing as many seminars as I can get my hands on, and I'm still getting out there and meeting with the fans and doing the meet and greets. I'll be at the UFC Fan Expo here in another probably 2 months, I think it is. So I'll continue to be involved with this sport for as long as people are interested in having me around, and I hope the UFC wants to keep me around. I'd like to be a part of that Hall of Fame at some point in time, and if that ever happens, I think that would be definitely pretty. I'd be happy about that, So I guess we'll see.
Definitely, I think that's well deserved. Whenever you decide to hang them up, Hall of Fame bid shouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities for you. Let me ask you this: better win for you, Kenny Florian or Nick Diaz? Which one are you more proud of, or which one was in your mind is the better one?
Well, as far as tough factor goes, Diaz was he's as tough as they get. He posed a lot of problems. The guy's 6'1". I'm fighting at 170, so he outweighed me by a lot. He was bigger than I was, and his ground game was just really good. He's probably one of the best ground game guys I've ever grabbed onto before. So as far as tougher fights, I'd say not to take anything away from Kenny by any means, but Diaz, and that was a tough fight. And as far as a fight I'm most proud of, I won the world title when I fought Kenny, so that would be the fight I'd be most proud of. So when I beat Nick was coming off a 2-fight loss streak. He just got beat by Riggs. He got beat by who else did he get beat by? He just got beat by Diego Sanchez. So he had 2 losses in a row. So there wasn't a whole lot of hype around Nick at that time like there is now. My loss when I beat him, he hadn't lost a fight for like the last. He had like a 5-year win streak or something like that, all the way until he came back to the UFC. I was the last guy that beat him. So at that point in time, there wasn't a lot of hype around him like there is now. Whereas when I beat Kenny, that was for a world title. So.
Makes sense. And reflecting on your career, what is if you had one moment, or one fight, or one moment, would it be that Kenny Florian fight when you won the UFC title? Is that like the crowning, pinnacle?
You definitely, that's what changed my life right there. I was still working a part-time job all the way up until a month before I fought that fight. I was still working. Because I had to supplement that income, and I didn't have a lot of money to fall back on, and I had to work. I had to make sure the bills were paid, and all the way up until a month before that fight, and ever since then, just the opportunities that have came along with winning that title and the growth of the sport all kind of came at the same time, because the sport was really starting to take off right around that time. So I was right at the top of the top tier of the weight class when the sport was taking off. So a lot of opportunities came about. So that would be the pinnacle and the highlight of my career.
Does it not seem or maybe it doesn't, but to me it seems like that was just yesterday, Sean, when you fought Kenny Florian for the title.
It was a long time ago. Man, that was
it was like
that was like 6 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but man, like to me, I don't know, maybe I live in the past, but you fighting Kenny Florian, that bloody massacre of a fight, then when you defended the belt against Hermes Franca, BJ comes back in, and into the lightweight division, and all that stuff was happening, the sport was still kind of in its infancy compared to where it is now. I mean, like you said, it was picking off. It was taking off right around then. But it just, I mean, maybe to you it seems that long ago. To me, it just doesn't seem that long ago, man. maybe I'm living in the past, but
it doesn't really seem like it was that long ago. But when you look at number of years and everything that's happened since then you kind of realize, holy crap, I mean, geez, there's been 4 champions since I was a champ. You had Frankie, you had BJ. And Ben, so there's only been 3. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that has gone on in that division since I had that title, and just the sport as a whole. If you look at how everything has evolved, and I won the title the same night that Anderson Silva won the title. We both won the title the same night, and Anderson hasn't lost it. He's had it ever since then. So I mean, just imagine how amazing that is. That's crazy if you think about it.
That is.
No, for sure, and you do go way back to like really we're extreme challenge shows, reality submission fighting. When you look, I know I thought that would get a little chuckle out of you when you get when you think back to see now a lot of these fans, and I'll say like 99% don't know shit about any of those shows. So like when you think about when you go back to that time, that's a totally different time of your life. Like things are very, very different. We're talking the 90s. Everything was different. So like when you think about that, like that's my era too, by the way. So don't think I'm even calling. I'm not that far off from you. So, but when you think about that, like, what are the if you could take a fan to like a crazy time that like and you're like, man, I walked into this event, and you could tell a story about one that you were just from way back in the day that really sticks out to you. What's one fight that you were that really sticks out in your head from a long time ago?
Man, I've had so many. I've got so many funny stories just from fighting back in that era because people didn't understand what this was. It was considered barbaric. It was considered gross, and I mean, it was frowned upon. It wasn't cool by any means. Nobody looked at you like, oh, you're an MMA fighter. You're cool. Can I have your autograph? It was more like, you're an MMA fighter. Let me hold on to my purse. Think you're going to steal it or something. So it was totally different. But yeah, I mean, the fans were different. People would throw stuff. People would swear at you. You'd hear "kill him" a lot from the audience. But I actually had, and this is good, I'm gonna say this story just because it happened in Hawaii, and it was in Rudy, BJ Penn's trainer, was actually cornering me for a fight when I was in Hawaii, and I was fighting a local guy on the Big Island. And I beat the guy, and after the fight was over, the guy's dad actually jumped into the ring and punched me in the back of the head, like when I wasn't looking. I beat his kid, he jumps in the ring, punches me in the back of the head, and I didn't see this happening. And next thing you know, Rudy, BJ Penn's boxing coach, jumps in the ring and punches the guy and drops him, right in the middle of the ring in the big arena, and everyone surrounds me, and they people are mad at me, because I'm the I just beat the local guy, and they didn't want me to win, obviously. So yeah, all these security and stuff surrounds me and rush me right out the front door. Actually, they rushed me out the back door with a waiting vehicle that was already running, throw me in the vehicle and drive me off to my hotel room. So I basically show up at my hotel room and wearing nothing but a pair of shorts and some tight gloves, so I was barefoot, had no shirt, nothing, it was still sweating actually when I showed up at the hotel room. So that was a pretty interesting story. I think that I still have that fight on tape actually.
Wow.
So you in your corner beat up a guy and his dad.
Well, I beat the guy up, and yeah, BJ Penn's coach Rudy jumps in. He was protecting me. He was cornering me for that fight because I didn't have a corner guy, so he was doing me a favor. And he dropped the guy right in the middle of the ring. It's pretty funny.
What a trip! What a trip! That's a good story, Sean. That's a real good story, man.
Yeah. A lot of funny stuff that has happened like that over the years. Like I said, that time was just a whole different time, and nothing like that would happen now, I don't think. But those are the kind of stories you look back on and you chuckle, and that's the kind of stuff you can tell your kids about, too. So
Yeah.
and I got it on video to prove it. So
That's amazing. I'd love to get my hands on that videotape, Sean. What can we do about that?
yeah, you know what? It's on VHS. That's how long ago this was. It's on
Wow.
VHS. So I don't even own a VCR anymore. So I'll have to get that switched over onto a DVD.
Right on, right on. All right. Before we let you go, you've been gracious with your time tonight, and I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy, and I think it's been a great discussion we've had tonight talking to you. What is the legacy Sean Sherk leaves behind? Let's just say you never make it back to the cage, and you're busy with all your other stuff, and time passes you by in that regards. What is the legacy that you want fans to remember you by?
I mean, I've always said the same thing. I just want to be known as one of the best fighters in the world during my era, and I think I did make my mark. I fought the best of the best, and I put my butt on the line, and I think I have always showed up ready to fight and put on a great show. And I've gotten fight of the night on many occasions, and fought for world titles in multiple weight classes. I think I did create myself a legacy as being one of the best in my era. So that's exactly what I want. Like I said earlier in the interview, I'd like to be recognized as a UFC Hall of Famer at some point in time too.
Perfect. Sounds good to me, Mr. Sherk. I think I speak for all the fans out there that say we hope we get to see you in the cage at least one more time. More than once would be awesome, but if you can make it in there one more time for the fans, I don't think anybody would complain. So hopefully we can make that happen. Hopefully you can get the right opponent, all the things line up, and we get to see you at least one more time, man. I think it'd be awesome.
Well, I appreciate that, and appreciate you guys having me on the show tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Mr. Sherk. You have a good night.
You too. Take care. Bye.
All right, bye.
Man, that was like exactly what I need to. You get everything. You figured out everything, because I had no idea that any of that stuff was going on. I had no idea that he was nursing so many injuries for so long.
Oh yeah, dude. If you look at it, before he fought Evan Dunham, he pulled out of 3 or 4 fights in a row. They were trying to get him busy. He fought. He fought let me look at his record. He fought Frankie Edgar in May of 2009. Then he fought Evan Dunham in September of 2010. And there was a big gap there, but they were trying to book him fights like crazy, and he kept getting injured.
Well, I mean, if you see how the guy trains, that's why it's insane. When you know why he gets injured when you see how he trains. He again, he was one of the first people that I remember putting a video out there of him doing his conditioning on the lead up to a fight. And, now everybody does it, but it was legendary, really, because, people would go and I'm sure you could still see it, the Sean Sherk, training mask. Yeah, I'm sure if you just YouTube that, you can find the crazy sessions and things like that. But, he was one of the first guys to do it. And, when you work that hard, injuries could pile up.
It was definitely an honor to have Sean Sherk on the show tonight. We've had a really good list of guests this evening, and we're closing it out with another good guest. George, you want to introduce him, because I actually have him on the line right now.
Yes. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and UFC featherweight, and really he was a good UFC lightweight as far as I'm concerned. Cole Miller, what's going on, Cole?
Not much, guys. Thanks for having me.
How good do you feel how good do you feel knowing that you basically saved your job in your last fight against Bart? You know what I mean? That was kind of like a loser leaves town type of fight. You won it. You performed when you absolutely needed to. So how's life for you now?
It's good to keep my head above water, but that's not really the goal. Just do enough barely to get by. So, just still training and waiting to hear about a future opponent and a future date, and just keep this going, get some momentum.
Right on. Now, George and I were talking earlier in the broadcast tonight, man, and we were saying you looked really good at lightweight. Do you ever have any thoughts of going back up to 155, or are you content at the 145-pound division now?
I feel pretty good at 145. I didn't really feel so hot in my first fight, but the last 2 fights I physically felt pretty solid. So, the switch was just made because I was too small at lightweight, and it was taking its toll on my body, especially in the gym, training with the bigger guys and stuff. And this is where I'm at.
Okay, makes sense. We were also talking earlier, not to keep bringing up old stuff we were talking about, but I was talking about the difference between a fighter and an athlete, right? I'm sure that's a topic that's been well discussed. And we had a guy, probably I think one of your former teammates actually, Thiago Silva. We had him on earlier this evening on the show, and he's one of those guys that brings like a real level of intensity into the cage every time he steps in. You look at him, and he's kind of like a scary dude to look at. You know what I mean? But you kind of bring in that same intensity, and you're Mr. Nice Guy and everything like that. But when you step into the cage, bro, you're like Diaz brother-esque. You know what I mean? Like you're really in there, and you look like you're ready to kill your guy. Is that a fair assessment? And what brings that out in you?
Yeah, I think you got to be able to turn the switch on. I guess what brings it out in me is we're in there fighting for money. We're not buddy, and if you go in there with that kind of approach and you think it's just going to be some sort of glorified sparring session, and you're not in there doing what martial arts is intended to be in there used for. So you might end up losing your job over something like that.
So you made the switch to 145. You said you feel better there. Is that something that you felt obviously you said you didn't feel it necessarily in your first fight, but could you feel the difference moving around a featherweight versus a lightweight when you were actually in the octagon?
Yeah. I mean, as far as like just feeling it from a defensive or more counter standpoint, feeling the size of the opponents, you can definitely feel a difference. The guys are faster, and I don't know. I think it's probably about the same technical level. They might be a little bit more technical at 145 pounds, but it's pretty close. But the speed's the only difference. But feeling the size and the weight of the opponents is a lot different.
It seems to be that being tall and rangy for your weight class is very beneficial. The first person to come to mind is John Jones. Do you feel like you could bring kind of similar I mean, obviously you're two totally different fighters, but
not at all.
You can, but you can use that to your advantage in the sense that a lot of the guys will not have that reach advantage. You can land those strikes on the outside. You can land those shots.
Right, you just got to be able to, put the wrestling in, keep working that. John Jones, he's an incredible fighter, and he has that wrestling where he can just put guys on back at will. So being able to have that, that reach and that length is phenomenal. But when you got these guys just walking forward, each foot walking forward, they're just throwing haymakers and they're just trying to crash in and get under your hips. It's a little bit easier to do on a taller fighter. But, if you can, strike and you can move and you can stop takedowns all simultaneously, then, it's definitely it's a lot better to be the taller striker in that situation.
So, the last fight was against Bart Palacheski. Like you said, you were coming off of a 2-fight skid, but you went in there and, you performed well. You got a solid finish. Is there any reservations about fighting like that and just going for it? Because you always fight. You kind of always fight the same way. You kind of go for the kill regardless. Was there any sort of difference in your mentality going into that fight, knowing that and it's not for sure that you were going to get cut or anything like that, but that probably in the back of your mind that it's possible that if you lost, that you could get cut. Does your strategy change at all when you're thinking about things like that?
I mean, I should have got cut if I lost. That's what you get for failure to perform. Unless it was some sort of fight of the year type of situation. But I definitely had it in the back of my mind. I had to put that aside. I'm not saying it to tease you. When I'm saying, oh, you can't fight like this or you can't fight like that. Because even though your job is on the line, that doesn't mean I'm just saying it and it's just a walk in the park. That's part of the mental training too. I say you got to get over it. If I say it nonchalant, that's just because it's that that black and white to me. That doesn't mean that it's easy to me, you know. So I certainly had to, you know, accept the fact that, you know, this was it if I lost the fight, you know, and it was back to the drawing board. So, you know, I accepted that, and then, you know, I accepted what would happen to my life and the type of changes that would happen had I lost that fight. And once I was able to come to grips with that and accept that, I'm able to fight that kind of fight that, you know, you're used to seeing me fight, just letting it all go and, you know, going for the kill, you know, taking risks to make something, you know, really good happen.
Makes sense. Let me ask you this, Cole, and this may be a sore subject, and I don't like bringing up anything negative or anything like that, so I'm not meaning it that way. But I kind of remember your featherweight debut was against a Siler, right?
Right.
Okay. Now that's a fight you ended up losing, and I remember that. To me, there was a storyline there that I don't know that it was promoted all the way like it should have, because he beat your brother, right? And then I kind of felt like it was
right.
I felt like it was Big Brother coming in, you know, and to try to avenge Little Brother. What was there any of that kind of energy going into that fight, and do you think it kind of took away from your performance, or am I just reading too much into that?
Well, you know, I honestly didn't really want to fight that guy. The way I thought about it was why do I want to fight this guy that my brother beat? Because if I beat him, then it makes that guy look not as good, and then it makes my brother definitely not look as good. You know?
Makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I didn't really want anything to do with the fight, and I wasn't very motivated coming into the fight. But you know, I was able to. You know, it all depends on, you know, none of that matters. It's what you do on fight day. That's all that matters, and I didn't do enough.
Okay.
But I mean, it was definitely an interesting first experience. You know, I don't want to say that was like the, you know, the Achilles heel in that fight, because it wasn't. You know, I'm just saying that I wasn't exactly, you know, pumped, you know, about it. You know, especially the more I started training for it, I didn't really feel like that was, you know, a fight that I was waking up for every morning and feeling excited about. You know what I mean? But it was a little interesting fighting the first debut fight in Australia too. You know, they had us fighting first thing in the morning. I had to get up at like 5 in the morning, and you know, I barely had enough time to hydrate. You know, and I had to get up at 5 a.m. to take the shuttle or what have you to the Olympic Stadium and prepare for the fights that started at 8 a.m. I believe, because we were doing it live in the on U.S. time.
Right. So that's definitely a challenge. Do you feel that, you know, now that you've had 3 fights in the featherweight division that you're 100% comfortable there, like that's your home?
I wouldn't say. I mean, I feel 100% comfortable. That's my home, yeah. But you know, I'm not saying that I'm 100%. Like everything, you know, that what you saw in my last night is my best performance. I've got a few things I want to tweak out to get the most performance. You know, as far as, you know, the weight cutting and such. And I'm still constantly, you know, evolving fighter. I'm still improving all the time. You know, still work on my wrestling, still work on boxing, my Muay Thai, my jiu-jitsu, and most important, I'm working a little bit more on combining all those aspects. You know, I feel like I'm probably one of the more technical guys when it comes to each and every single one of those, but I don't always mix styles together, and that's what this is. It's mixed martial arts. It's not, you know, who's the best at each individual one. It's who's the best at piecing it together, and I've kind of neglected that, I guess you could say. And part of that, you know, that fault lies at my hands, but you know, for this fight, you know, I worked a lot on that.
What specifically would you say? I guess you don't want to give away much of your skill-wise, but is there something in particular that you feel like you neglected that really put a hamper on your development as a fighter that you kind of are going back and fixing now recently?
You know, I think I'm becoming a little bit more offensive. I'm initiating. I heard I think for so long I heard you can't get taken down. You can't get taken down. That was like when I was a blue belt and a purple belt. And now things have come full circle, and coaches are telling me, if he takes you down, great. You know what I mean? Because I'm Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I'm obviously well versed in the guard, and I've got attacks, sweeps, back takes, and submissions. Coming from all angles. From the bottom. But I think for so long I beat it into my head. Because when I was a blue belt, purple belt, and even early brown belt, I was still getting smoked by some of these killers at American Top Team. So you get that beat in your head. You can't get taken down. Then I think you start thinking a little bit more about what your opponent is trying to do. So I'm trying to counter a little bit too much instead of attack and counter simultaneously. So it's a little bit of a mental thing, but it's also physical, as far as like the kind of techniques that you're training, the kind of techniques that you're attempting to pull off in the sparring sessions, and the techniques that you're drilling. I think I was kind of trying to strike and keep distance. I think that was a primary focus, and I was neglecting, my Muay Thai clinch and things that, that had gotten me so much success for so long, and initiating some of those offensive takedowns. When a guy does come crashing in. But I was just focused a little bit more on just kind of keeping them from being able to do anything to me. And in doing that, you kind of allow it for the guy to be able to do more to you. You kind of let him walk all over. You kind of let him be the one that dictates, and that's not my natural style. So I'm just kind of trying to get back to that.
You brought it up just now, and you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but actually, you haven't been a black belt for that long, but you have so many submission wins in mixed martial arts, and you were getting them at probably when you were a purple belt. Now, explain to me this: how is it that you adapted your jiu-jitsu to mixed martial arts so well? You just got your black belt, and while you absolutely have a fantastic guard and you're phenomenal on the ground in mixed martial arts, you don't come in boasting the credentials that a lot of these jiu-jitsu world champions do, yet they don't look anything like you on the ground. So explain to me, like, what is it about the jiu-jitsu world champions that come into MMA where they just struggle on the ground, whereas you adapt your game for mixed martial arts and strikes very well?
Well, I learned everything backwards. I didn't start with jiu-jitsu. I started with mixed martial arts. My first trainer, Kamikari, he was a self-trained guy. We didn't have a Brazilian jiu-jitsu program when I first started training in Georgia. We would show up and we would grapple or we would spar, and that was how we prepared for our mixed martial arts fights. So I kind of had to learn just to adapt right away, and everything was thought of with the intention of, if this guy could be able to hit you here. Because even when I started in 2003 with, amateur back then, we had punches coming down on us. In some states we had elbows coming down on us. So you couldn't just, I couldn't just be your everyday white belt that was, doing normal techniques. I had to, react quickly, evolve, and be able to, think fast and take that first submission or that first mistake that came my way. So once I moved to American Top Team, that's when I started, a more pure form of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I put the gi on. I was blue belt for a year, purple belt for a year and a half, but I was a brown belt for 4.5 years. And yeah, like you just said, I just got the black belt, but I've been, submitting people in mixed martial arts since 2003. So I think the big thing with, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys and world champs is that they haven't had as long to practice and perfect their art in that realm. You know what I mean? These guys are coming into a situation with a ton of jiu-jitsu matches and, a ton of training hours, but they haven't had that live scenario yet. That's a lot of pressure on somebody with such a prestigious background to have.
So would you say that the gi is essential for being successful in MMA?
No, I think it's more. I look at it as a tool. I think that the gi is really important for you to excel quickly at no gi and being good at nogi is important for you to be successful in jiu-jitsu and MMA. So they're very loosely related. I wouldn't say that they're directly connected, but there's there's one degree of separation for them.
Makes sense. Cole, let me ask you this, man. Do you like the varsity, bro, in Atlanta?
The varsity, I mean, it's not very good for you, but yeah, it's good to have every now and then. Just the greasiest food on the planet.
Oh, I know. How often do you make it to Georgia, or do you live there and do you just train in Florida, or what's that like?
No, I live full time in Florida. Down here in American Top Team.
Okay.
Live and train here full time. I just get back to Georgia to see my friends and family. Everybody I know lives there still. I go up to see the guys at American Top Team in Atlanta with Thiago Carnero. So if you're in that area, go check those guys out. Definitely.
Yeah, man. I lived for at least 10 years. I want to say 10, 11 years in Atlanta. I spent most of my time in Lawrenceville in Gwinnett County. So I'm a big varsity lover. I just had to ask that. You mentioned that you were from Georgia, and it just dawned on me. George, the other
I'm
host,
in Atlanta.
He's in Atlanta right now. So we're some.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, we're some A-Town guys over here.
I hear you. Well, there's a new ATT in Gwinnett also. The Lima brothers are running that. Douglas
is
Diego
Jim.
Lima. So if you're in that area, definitely check them out.
Yeah, actually, I was just I actually train with Jukau, usually once every few weeks. So, but yeah, awesome coach, awesome instructor. Let me ask you this: do you attribute your success and through? Is it all through ATT? Would you say that they're the ones that turned you into the fighter you are? Because like we were talking about, 14 submission wins, a lot of those coming inside the UFC. I mean, that's a huge feather in your cap. Not a lot of people can say that. And you rep ATT. You're one of the most hardcore people that reps ATT and make sure everybody knows that where you've been training. Would you say that? Would you attribute that them to all your success or?
Well, I mean, for sure, most of it. I've been training about 2.5 years before I moved to American Top Team, so I definitely had a background. But as far as if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be the fighter that I am today. I think that their philosophy on martial arts, is still there. And I think that's one of the reasons, that I stayed so hardcore and so loyal to them is because I agree in their outlook on fighting and martial arts and everything that it is that they're doing. But yeah, I've got a great, relationship with my coaches. Those guys put all the work and the time and the effort into me. I can't be the easiest guy to coach. I'm not like a thick athlete like you're talking about athletes and fighters. I mean, I don't got a fast 40. I probably got a really weak vertical. And, as far as, being in the weight room, I'm definitely probably one of the least explosive guys. So it can't be, super easy to be my coach. I got to put hard work in and things like that. And I'll have my days in my sparring where, I'll be, an A-level guy in the gym and I'm beating everybody. And then, that's my day to be the man, that week. And my body doesn't recover as good. And when I come back in for that second training session, at the end of the week, that I'm that guy that's getting beaten down. I got to be the nail. So it can't be easy for my coaches, but that they stick by me and they put their time and effort into me, and they've helped shape me and mold me into the fighter that I am today. So, and I owe it all to them.
Right on. All right, Cole. Well, now that we got the win under our belt at featherweight, who do you want next, man? What do you see in your future? Because you were struggling in that division, like we've talked about, but you got your win over Barr, and now you're good to go. So what do you want next?
Honestly, I still think that I'm struggling. I just kept my head a little bit above water. They're still cutting people, and I still think I'm probably going to be fighting for my job. So, being 1-2 in the featherweight division, I don't think that really puts me at the, as being the top guy. So I don't really think I got any business calling people out just because, I got my feet wet a little bit. So I'll probably just sit back, hang tight. I'm going to keep training hard. I'm going to stay in good shape. Might do a couple triathlons this season. Maybe we'll pick up something short notice or schedule something before the end of August, hopefully.
Okay, right on. All right, Mr. Miller. Well, you've been gracious with your time tonight. I want to thank you very much for coming on our show this evening and giving us some insight. George, do you have anything else for Mr. Miller before we let him go?
No, just again, man. Always a pleasure to watch you fight. It's always fun, and I had to ask. I'm the jiu-jitsu guy through this duo here, so that's why I had to ask all the jiu-jitsu questions. I'm always really curious when I see somebody who is so dynamic on the ground. You just don't see that a lot in mixed martial arts. It seems to be that, and it's a topic of conversation a lot of times on the mat. It's like, man, Can this guy pull off the submission? Like when Vinny fought Phil Davis, we're kind of sitting there in the corner, like secretly rooting for Vinny to pull off the submission. So we're kind of all sticking together, and it's good. It's good to watch you get it done. What's that?
Well, thank you. I said I feel you on that. And thank you. I'd rather talk about jiu-jitsu more than I would talk about MMA, and I've been there on that other side before. Wanting to root for that jiu-jitsu guy. I grew, when I was coming up watching all the old prides, it was, BTT and shootbox, and I had a couple of shootbox guys I liked, but I was always rooting for the those old school BTT guys like Murillo Bustamante,
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's what it's really fun to watch you fight like that, because it's like it's the closest thing I'm going to see to pure jiu-jitsu and MMA, because the transitions are smooth. You'll see guys who power through power arm triangles in and things like that. I see wrestlers do it, but you don't see the smooth transitions. And it's definitely refreshing to see somebody pulling it off, and somebody who really. It just goes to show that it's not necessarily the amount of world titles; it's the practitioner.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So definitely, thanks again, Cole. We really appreciate it, man, and definitely would like to get you on. Like to get you back on again.
Soon.
When you announce your next fight. Yeah, announce your next fight.
Yeah,
man.
as soon as we get the fight book, let's get you back on, Cole.
Let's do it. I'll keep you guys updated.
Right on. Thanks, Mr. Miller. Have a good night, bro.
All right. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, man.
Another show in the books.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Did you hear our robot voice intro?
I did not hear the robot voice intro, and I'm really just trying to digest all the stuff that just there's a lot of information that came through the show, and really we've had some good shows, man. I just want to get that out there now, is that we've had the last few weeks have been, we've had some really good guests. And that's obviously the guests that make the show. We've had some good guests, and we broke some good news. And I like to see that trend continue.
Are you kidding me, man? We broke great news, right?
Yeah, people can complain that we're riding the Nate Diaz train over there, but man, that was an awesome interview.
I don't think we were really riding any train,
Hey. All we did was do the interview, okay? Put it out there.
That was our train. Other people were riding
the road, exactly. But that, and then the follow up stuff with Josh, stuff with Chris Lytle. We've had a lot of good stuff, and I think we, again, it's all the guests, but definitely good shows, man.
Yeah, I agree.
So, what do you think, man? Before we go, let me just get the. What do you think, Vitor or Rockhold? Let me just get your.
Oh, dude, it puts me in a tough situation because.
I know you know both guys, but if you're just looking at it as
no, not even that. Like, I really don't know Luke Rockhold all that well, right? But the tough situation comes in where I do know Vitor pretty well. Let's not forget that Vitor is a Ruka fighter, right?
Yep.
His best friend is one of my good friends named Chris Franco, who just lives up the street from me, So I've been knowing Vitor for a very long time. In fact, let me just say this. My first backstage UFC event was with Vitor Belfort, not with BJ Penn. okay, was actually with Vitor. So that's my dude. You know what I mean? Like no other way to put it. Okay. But Luke Rockhold, bro, he's just gonna use movement, man. Like he's not gonna finish Vitor. He's not gonna put Vitor in any trouble. I don't see that happening. But I see him Frankie Edgaring the shit out of Belfort and winning a decision. That's just what I see. I'm just gonna call it like I see it, no bias. I hope I'm wrong. Like I said, Vitor, I have a history with him, and I wish him nothing but the best. But stylistically, man, Luke Rockhold, he's like a little runner. You know what I mean? Like he uses his footwork, uses his speed and athleticism, and I just don't know if Vitor is going to be able to put hands on him. I hope I'm wrong, but that's just the way I see it. What about you?
Vitor by stoppage.
Really?
Yeah. And
I hope you're right.
And again, I'm basing this on experience in the division. Somebody who has the ability to fight in the weight class above. I don't think he could be maybe Vitor doesn't throw maybe not throw as many kicks. He's got better hands, but I definitely think this is a fight that Vitor can surprise people. But the major thing that is going to be, in my opinion, that separates us is the UFC jitters and a fight that's in Brazil. I just think that could be really, that the flight itself, acclimating, dealing with the press, being out of town. And then on top of that, you're fighting in a UFC main event against a name like Vitor Belfort. Vitor has been there and done this, on several stages, and it's just going to be another fight for him. And it's not going to be that for Luke Rockhold, is what I think, and that it could cause problems. His team captain Daniel Cormier froze up against Frank Mir in his UFC debut. And that's a guy who's pretty seasoned in competition.
Yeah, I hope you're right, man. That's all I can say. I just think if I forget who I know and how I know him and what I know, and I break down that fight stylistically, like as an analyst, that's just what I see. But I hope you're right. I really do. No offense to Luke Rockhold, but I'm definitely pulling for my Ruka brother Vitor Belfort this weekend.
Absolutely.
What else?
No, let's see who else. Well, let's see that we got a couple other fights on that card that are really the next one down is the one that got changed, which is now Jacare and Chris Camozzi, and I just don't see how Jacare can lose this fight, man.
Jacare is the real deal, bro.
that guy's legit. I was just talking about jiu-jitsu world champs that can't really make it happen in MMA. I was not talking about him.
Yeah.
Let's just get that straight. I was not talking about Jacare Souza. He absolutely is a killer.
Yeah. Kind of a lackluster card this weekend, though, right? Like not too much really going on. There's a couple. Vitor Belfort and Rockhold is the show. I think without them, this card wouldn't draw 100,000 viewers. No offense to anybody else. That's just what I think.
No, probably not. But the fights themselves could be good. Dos Anjos and Dunham should be a pretty good fight. It's a Brazil card, and they've stacked it up with Americans against Brazilians. So let's see what it turns out like. The crowd's going to be good, so that's going to make watching the fights more enjoyable. Because there's nothing worse than watching fights and the crowd is dead, even when a good fight's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be dead in Brazil for sure.
No question about that. But anyway, what else?
Not this weekend, but next weekend's fights. We'll talk about that next week. That's the card I'm looking forward to, man.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's definitely a big one. And
UFC 160.
Yeah, we get one of Cole's teammates who's fighting in the main event of that card.
Yeah, dude, Velasquez Silva.
Yeah.
Dos Santos, Hunt, Teixeira's coming back.
So is Hunt getting in?
Maynard.
Is Hunt getting in or what? What's up?
Dude, I don't know. You know who we should have on next week? We should have KJ Noons on. He's fighting Donald Cerrone next. We should have had him on this week, actually.
We had KJ on. We had KJ on
a couple weeks ago. Well, about a month, maybe more than a month ago now. It's been a while, dude.
Yeah.
And he's fighting in a week and a half.
Yeah, we could always talk to KJ.
Max Holloway too. Our homegirl Lynn Mitchell, who writes for BJPenn.com, also does photography and video for BJPenn.com, trains with Max Holloway out there in Hawaii.
He's one that's making some noise, huh?
Yeah. Freaking Mike Piles fighting on that card too, bro. We got a lot of our guys, you know what I mean? A lot of our guys that we're down with fighting on that card, so.
Yeah, Mike Piles' opponent got changed.
Yeah. He's fighting Rick Story now, dude.
Fighting Rick Story now.
Yeah, he was supposed to fight Gunnar Nelson.
Supposed to fight Gunnar Nelson. And yeah, because we had an awesome interview with him, which everybody should check out in the archives. It's really good. But yeah, that fight got changed. And that's going to be a hell of a fight also, man. Rick Story's a beast.
Rick Story is a beast who, you know, he was one of the fastest guys to rise through the ranks, right? And then boom, he like took a turd or something happened there.
He dropped a couple, and the hype wore off, and then man, he sure did look pissed off the last time I saw him fight, though.
Yeah, he did.
So, I mean, that's gonna be a good fight. It's really a fight that Pyle needs to, both guys really need that win badly, and Cole Miller would kind of struck a good point, man, because kind of at the point now where there's so many fighters under contract that every fight could be your last if you don't perform.
Yeah, you know what, man? Like, I wanted to tell him, like, dude, go back to 155. What are you doing? But whatever, that's not my place. I thought he looked better at lightweight. If you look at the wins in lightweight, I mean, he beat some good dudes, you know. Featherweight, not so much. He just had his first win at featherweight. Like he only has one win down there. So, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I also do understand what he's talking about, though. When you have to train with people who are much bigger than you, it is really, really taxing because you're sitting there having to deal with all their weight and size the whole time, and they don't feel any of that pressure from you, and you get injured a bunch more. And as hard as that guy's training, and with the guys at ATT that are probably putting him through the ringer, I mean, on the daily, he's got to spar with guys like, he's got to, it could be a Hector Lombard or a Thiago Alves, or somebody like that in there. And, they're not going to take it easy on you.
I mean, dude, but the guy beat Andy Wang, homie. You know what I mean? The Wang and Bang. He beat him.
My best memory of Andy Wang is, and you know what I'm going to say, right?
Go for it.
You know what I'm going to say, right?
No, I don't.
Is BJ's impression of him. Okay, my best. That's the only memory I have of Andy Wang is BJ making fun of him crying on Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
Now you know what? That's I should have asked Cole about Ultimate Fighter. Actually, that's my failure on that part. Was that if we could have gone back and gone a little bit further with his Ultimate Fighter stuff, but yeah, that's my memory of Andy Wang was BJ calling him a crybaby because he wouldn't listen to him while he was cornering him.
That's why they call it the Stand and Wang now, bro. That's what they call it.
Stand and Wang.
That's why they call it that. I'm glad I got to ask Cole about varsity. Man, George, how can we work this out where you can send me some varsity, bro?
I could. Let me tell you something. Amber would absolutely kill me if I sent you some varsity. Okay. There would be return to sender on the box, and you would send it back. She would send it back.
If anybody out there is listening, the varsity in Atlanta, you gotta try it. If you're ever in Atlanta, the varsity, it's hamburgers and French fries. It's amazing, and hot dogs and slaw dogs. And this amazing orange drink thing that they make, and it's just ridiculous.
And
so
there's like 15 cashiers to to get you through your. Don't worry, you won't be in line that long.
Man, they make the buns fresh there. You know what I mean? Every single day, like the hot dog buns and the hamburger buns, everything is fresh. It's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah, you love that spot. I know.
That's just because I'm the fat. That's just the fat boy talking to me. That's all it is. And I'm hungry right now. I'm hungry.
Well, man, it was another good show, dude. We did good. I think we did all right. So, not too bad, man.
Another good show.
Uh,
All right, man. We're done. Let's just call it a night.
let's just wrap it up, man. So
I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna wrap it up with robot voice. We're gonna bounce.
All right, let's do it.
Later, George.
Later,
Later
bud.
guys.
BJ Penn.com Radio.